I thought the worst thing that could happen at my fiancé's bachelorette party was a few half-naked guys and some bad karaoke. I was wrong. What I saw on that video made strippers look like choir boys. It wasn't just embarrassing. It was the kind of thing that would rip apart families if it ever got out. And she wasn't even trying to hide it. The laughs, the toasts, the way she leaned in, all right there on camera. I didn't yell. I didn't confront her. I just sent it straight to the one person who'd never forgive her. When Jenna and I got engaged, I honestly thought I'd hit the jackpot. She was vibrant, funny, and had this way of making a room feel alive. People loved her, and she loved that people loved her. Maybe I should have seen it as a warning, but at the time it felt like a blessing. We'd been together for 2 years when I proposed. The moment was perfect. Sunset on the pier, her tearing up, the small crowd clapping as if they were part of some rom-com scene. Everyone we knew said we were a power couple, and I believed them. The wedding planning was intense, but Jenna thrived in it. She wanted everything to be memorable and over the top. I mostly stayed out of her way. My job was to nod, pay deposits, and carry boxes. I didn't mind. I trusted her. Then came the bachelorette party. It was supposed to be a simple night out with her girlfriends, a couple of cocktails, maybe a silly sash and tiara. She even reassured me. Don't worry, babe. It's just going to be fun, nothing wild. I didn't push. If anything, I felt smug about how secure we were. The night of the party, I texted her around midnight just to check in. No reply. Not unusual. She could get caught up in the moment. The next morning, she came home a little hungover, hair messy, makeup smudged. She brushed it off as just tired and headed straight for the shower. Something in her tone was different. Later that day, I got a message from an old friend of hers, someone I barely knew. No greeting, no explanation, just a short clip attached. I tapped it, expecting maybe a funny drunk moment. It took me less than 10 seconds to realize I wasn't supposed to see it. It wasn't anything illegal. It wasn't even what you might call outright cheating. But it was ugly, crude, mean-spirited, and it was aimed at me. My name, my habits, my looks, turned into a running joke in front of everyone. Laughter, toasts, mockery disguised as fun. Even her maid of honor joined in. I sat there, phone in my hand, pulse in my ears. This wasn't just a few drunk words. This was planned. The props, the skit, the way she soaked in the applause. They were laughing at me, not with me. That should have been my first red flag, but I didn't shout, didn't storm over. I knew exactly who needed to see this, and it wasn't Jenna. Little did I know, pressing send on that video would set off a chain reaction no one could stop. I didn't watch the clip just once. I watched it 5 times. Each replay dug the knife in a little deeper, peeling away the last scraps of the image I'd built of Jenna. In the video, they were all gathered in a living room decorated with cheap feather boas, inflatable champagne bottles, and a giant glittery banner that read, "One last ride before the bride." Music blared in the background, some pop anthem about freedom and bad decisions, but the laughter cut through louder than anything. Jenna was in the center, tiara slightly crooked, holding a microphone like she was hosting a roast. And I was the roast. They'd set it up like a game show. The contestants, her friends, took turns answering relationship trivia about me. Except the answers weren't facts. They were punchlines. "What's Alex's idea of a romantic date?" one friend asked. "Netflix and reheated Chinese." Jenna shot back, making a gagging face. The crowd howled. Then came the talent portion, where Jenna did an imitation of me trying to dance at her cousin's wedding. She exaggerated every awkward move, staggering around the room. Someone actually fell off the couch laughing. It would have been just petty if it stopped there. But then they brought out the gifts, gag presents wrapped in bright paper. The first one was a bottle of manscaping cream. The second, a framed photo of a manatee with my face photoshopped on it. The third, I don't even want to describe. And through it all, Jenna soaked it in. She laughed until her eyeliner smudged. She high-fived the maid of honor. She clinked glasses after every insult like she'd just scored a point in some invisible game. I paused the video at one point, her face frozen mid-laugh. I didn't even recognize her in that moment. The hurt hit first, sharp, like touching ice. Then came the heat. Not just anger, but humiliation. I imagined every one of those people leaving that party with their own little version of poor Alex to share over brunch. I could have texted her right then. I could have called. But what would that do? She'd say it was just a joke, that I was being sensitive. No, I needed a witness, someone whose opinion she couldn't dodge or spin, someone who mattered enough to her that the shame would stick. Her mother came to mind immediately, not because I wanted to ruin Jenna, but because her mother didn't suffer fools, especially not in her own family. She'd raised Jenna to be a lady, and while I didn't agree with all her old-fashioned ideas, I knew exactly how she'd react to that video. I sat back in my chair, thumb hovering over the share button. 100 thoughts flashed through my head. Was I crossing a line? Was I about to blow up my own wedding? Would this make me look petty? And then I pictured them. The smirks, the clinking glasses, the way my name turned into a punchline. I hit send. For about 20 seconds, I felt nothing. Then my phone buzzed. Once. Twice. Then it wouldn't stop. It wasn't Jenna. It was her mother. And the first thing she said made me realize this was about to go far beyond anything I'd imagined. Her mother's voice wasn't yelling. That's what threw me. It was calm. Cold. The kind of tone you use when you're deciding whether to burn a bridge or rebuild it. Alex, she said, is this recent? I told her it was from the night before. There was a pause, long enough for me to imagine her rewinding the clip in her mind, frame by frame. I'm not surprised, she finally said. Those 4 words hit harder than anything Jenna had done in that video. What do you mean you're not surprised? I asked. Her mother sighed, and I could hear the faint clink of ice in a glass. Maybe water, maybe something stronger. I've been hearing things. Little things. Snippets from her cousins, from a neighbor who works with one of her friends. I didn't want to believe it, but it all lines up. The floor seemed to tilt under me. Lines up with what? That this isn't the first time she's made you the joke. The bachelorette party was just the biggest audience she's had so far. I gripped the phone tighter. My mind was sprinting back through 2 years of moments. The funny toasts at family dinners, the way her friends would smirk when I walked into a room, the offhand comments that made no sense until now. Her mother kept talking, almost like she was unloading something she'd been holding in for too long. Last Christmas, she and her bridesmaids did a secret Santa thing. The gifts, they were all about you. The lazy fiancé starter kit, she called it. I told her it was childish. She laughed and said, it's just who we are. I wanted to interrupt, to defend myself, to demand why she hadn't told me sooner. But part of me already knew. People don't interfere in a relationship unless they think it's already cracked. Then she said something that made my stomach twist. Alex, you should also know, someone recorded another video. Not from the party. From the rehearsal dinner planning night. And it's worse. I closed my eyes. Worse how? She hesitated, which told me more than any description could. If you want it, I'll send it. But you won't like what you see. I sat there in silence, the hum of the fridge filling the room. My thoughts weren't straight lines anymore. They were looping spirals of anger, disbelief, and this strange, bitter clarity. If this had been going on for months, maybe longer, then the bachelorette party wasn't a slip-up. It was the climax of a long-running joke I'd been too blind to notice. Finally, I told her to send it. When it came through, I almost didn't hit play. My hands were shaking, the phone slick in my grip. The screen lit up with Jenna, in the same living room, weeks earlier. She was with her bridesmaids, wine glasses in hand, talking about the upcoming wedding. But instead of excitement, it was strategy. She was explaining how she planned to manage me after the vows, how I was trainable if you dangled the right incentives. Every sentence dripped with condescension. And then she said it, the line that froze my blood. If he ever tries to pull away, I'll just embarrass him back into place. Works every time. I didn't watch the rest. I didn't have to. Because now I knew. This wasn't about a party. This was who she really was. And suddenly, the question wasn't whether to cancel the wedding. It was how to do it so she'd never see it coming. The next morning, I woke up with that video still burned into my brain. Her voice, that smug little smirk, when she said, works every time. I didn't dream it. I didn't exaggerate it. It was there, in high definition, proof that every uneasy moment over the last year hadn't been paranoia. I poured coffee and sat at the kitchen table, phone in front of me like it was a loaded weapon. My first instinct was to delete both videos, not to protect her, but because part of me didn't want to keep replaying my own humiliation. But another part, the part that had been quietly growing since last night, told me to hold on to them. They weren't just evidence. They were leverage. I spent the first few hours doing something I'd never done before, revisiting every funny memory with Jenna through a different lens. Her teasing me in front of her friends that night at the karaoke bar, not just playful banter, but testing how far she could push before I'd push back. The Instagram story she posted of me dozing off on the couch, captioned "Grandpa Energy," suddenly not so harmless when I realized it had hundreds of laughing emoji reactions from her followers. Even the time she forgot to introduce me to a group at a party, letting me stand awkwardly at the edge while she laughed and whispered with her maid of honor. Now it looked like deliberate social isolation. This wasn't a one-off personality quirk. It was a system. By mid-afternoon, I knew I couldn't just walk away quietly. That would give her the ending she wanted, me fading out, her free to spin the narrative however she pleased. She'd turn me into the overly sensitive ex who couldn't handle a joke. No, if she wanted an audience, I'd give her one. I started small. A message to her mother, thanking her for the videos and telling her I planned to handle it. She didn't ask what that meant, but I could almost hear the approval in her short reply. Do what you have to do. Then I reached out to someone I hadn't spoken to in months. Derek, an old friend of mine who drifted away after getting tired of Jenna's constant digs. He was blunt when I called. "Man, I was wondering when you were gonna wake up." He told me he'd heard rumors from mutual friends that Jenna had been rehearsing that roast for weeks. She'd even tried some of the lines out at smaller get-togethers to gauge the laughs. That was the final nail. There was no defense, no way to frame it as harmless. She'd engineered my humiliation like an event on the wedding calendar. By evening, I decided exactly how this would end. Not with shouting, not with tears, with precision. I drafted a short list, 3 people who needed to see the videos before anyone else. Her mother, already done. My best man, the wedding planner. The last one wasn't for emotional support, it was strategic. The wedding planner had access to everything: schedules, deposits, vendor contacts. If I played it right, I could pull the plug on the entire event before Jenna even realized the foundation was crumbling. I stared at the names, feeling something shift inside me. This wasn't damage control anymore. This was preparation for a controlled demolition. And I knew the exact date it was going to collapse, the day she thought she'd be walking down the aisle. 2 days later, I was sitting at my desk pretending to work when an email notification slid across the corner of my screen. Subject: "You might want to see this before you marry her." No sender name I recognized. I almost deleted it. My inbox had been a graveyard of spam lately, and I wasn't in the mood for another miracle investment opportunity. But something about the timing and the fact that it landed in my personal email, not work, made me click. Inside was a single line. From her bridal shower. "Thought you should know." And a link. I hovered over it, checking the preview to make sure it wasn't malware. It wasn't. It was a private Google Drive file. The video opened to a backyard patio strung with fairy lights, maybe a week before the Bachelorette party. Jenna sat at the head of a long table, champagne flute in hand, surrounded by friends and family, her mother notably absent. Someone was filming from the far end. It started innocently enough. Toasts about friendship, about how much fun married life would be. Then one of her friends tapped a spoon on her glass. "All right, everyone, time for the real advice for Jenna on keeping her man in line." They went around the table sharing tips. Some were harmless. Always let him think he picked the restaurant. Buy the good coffee so he's too happy to argue. But then Jenna leaned forward, smiling like she'd been waiting for her turn. "My secret? Keep him a little insecure. Works like magic. You don't want him too comfortable. He might start thinking he's the prize." Laughter. Applause. A few mock gasps. Then she added, "And if he ever does get cocky? Oh, I've got my ways." Public embarrassment is the fastest teacher. You'd be amazed how quick a man straightens up when everyone's laughing at him. She raised her glass like it was a toast worth remembering. The camera zoomed in just enough to catch the satisfied tilt of her head. I stopped the video, my pulse pounding in my ears. This wasn't drunk rambling. This was her philosophy, and she was proud of it. I scrolled back to the email. There was a second file, a screenshot from a group chat. The name at the top read, "Bride Tribe Crown Ringed." The messages were from Jenna. "Jenna, wait until you guys see the finale for the Bachelorette roast face with tears of joy. Maid of honor. He's gonna be so red. Jenna, that's the point, winking face, teach him who's running the show." I stared at the screen until the text blurred. The anger I'd felt before, sharp, immediate, shifted into something colder, heavier. This wasn't just disrespect. It was a long game, and I'd been nothing more than a prop in it. I forwarded the email to myself on a backup account, then to her mother with a short message. This is who your daughter really is. No emojis. No commentary. Her mother didn't reply right away. But an hour later, she called. Alex, she said quietly, if you want my help, I'll stand with you. That was the moment I realized I wasn't just going to cancel the wedding. I was going to make sure every single person who'd been invited knew exactly why they weren't attending. The guest list wasn't just an invitation roster anymore. It was my distribution plan. And with her own words as the headline, she'd be the one walking into a room full of whispers, not me. I didn't touch my phone for the rest of the night. Not because I didn't have things to say, but because I knew if I started talking, I might tip my hand too early. Instead, I sat in the dark living room with a notepad, scribbling bullet points under a single title: Exit Plan. The first question was obvious. Do I want revenge, or do I just want out? The easy answer was both, but the more I thought about it, the more I realized they weren't the same thing. Walking away quietly would give me my peace faster. But the peace would be fake, because somewhere out there, she'd still be telling her version, the one where I was too sensitive, couldn't take a joke, ran off. I wanted the truth on record. Not whispered, not hinted at. On record. But then came the hesitation, the voice in my head asking if I was about to become exactly what she'd been painting me as: petty, vindictive, small. Was I about to prove her right? I closed my eyes and replayed the videos in my mind. The roast, the bridal shower toast, the group chat screenshots. Every smirk, every dig, every glass raised at my expense. My hesitation didn't disappear, but it hardened into something else: resolve. I began mapping the steps. Step 1, lock down the vendors. I called the wedding planner the next morning, told her I needed a full vendor contact sheet for budget tracking. She sent it within the hour. I saved every name, every number, every email. Step 2, secure the evidence. I backed up the videos and screenshots to 3 separate drives, plus a private cloud account Jenna didn't know existed. Step 3, identify the choke points. There were 3: the venue, the caterer, and the DJ. Pull any one of them last minute, and the wedding collapses. Pull all 3, and it's unrecoverable. Step 4, choose the reveal moment. This was the hardest decision. Do I nuke everything before the big day, giving her time to spin a narrative? Or do I let everyone gather, then drop the truth where she can't hide? That's where the internal debate really started. One side of me, the side that still hated drama, said be humane, end it before the aisle. The other side, the one that had been fed on humiliation for months, said no. Let her feel the silence when the room turns on her. I didn't write down the decision. I just knew it. Step 5, allies. Her mother was already in. Derek would be easy. He'd hated her since the night she called him Alex's emotional support beer buddy in front of his girlfriend. And the third ally, well, that one was tricky. I needed someone inside her bridal party. Someone who'd pass me information without tipping Jenna off. The answer came later that night in the form of a DM from her cousin, a girl I barely knew who'd apparently been waiting for this day. She'd been side-eyeing Jenna's behavior for months and had her own stash of screenshots. We spoke for an hour. By the end, she'd agreed to be my eyes and ears until the moment I gave the signal. As I hung up, the plan felt airtight. I should have felt relieved. But there was this knot in my chest. Not guilt exactly, but the weight of knowing I was about to rewrite not just my life, but hers. Permanently. And once I started this, there would be no undoing it. I just didn't know that one unexpected message, 2 days later, would force me to move my timeline up and risk everything. The unexpected message came from the venue manager. It was a short, polite email. Hi, Alex. Just confirming your request to move up the final payment date to this week. We'll need the balance cleared by Friday to keep your reservation. Best, Claire. I hadn't made that request. For a moment, I thought maybe the planner had, but then it clicked. Jenna must have gotten nervous about something and decided to lock the venue in early, making it harder for me to pull the plug later. I called Claire immediately. Hey, yeah, about that payment. I actually need to review the contract before sending anything. Could you email me a full copy? She did, and that's when I saw the out clause. Hidden in paragraph 12. Either party may cancel for full refund up to 10 business days before the event. After that, partial refund only. We were exactly 11 days out. It was like finding a crack in a wall I'd been told was solid concrete. If I acted now, I could cancel, get the deposit back, and make the collapse clean and immediate. I drafted the cancellation email, attached the signed contract, and hit send before I could overthink it. Claire replied within an hour. Received. We'll process your refund this week. Reservation is now released. I sat back, a slow smile creeping in. This was it. The first domino. With the venue gone, the rest would unravel quickly. That night, I slept better than I had in weeks. The next morning, I woke to 37 unread messages. Most were from Jenna. The rest were from mutual friends, all variations of the same question. What's going on? Apparently, Claire hadn't just processed the cancellation, she'd called Jenna to confirm it, which meant Jenna found out before I could control the narrative. Her first text was short. Jenna, why did I just get a call saying our venue is canceled? Then, Jenna, this better be a mistake. Jenna, call me. Now. Jenna, are you trying to ruin everything? By the time I called her, she was already in full attack mode. What the hell, Alex? Do you know how hard it is to book a venue like that? I cut her off. We'll talk in person. That stopped her for a second. In person? About what? About everything. I hung up before she could answer. In my head, this was perfect. She'd panic, start scrambling, and walk right into the next stage of my plan, the reveal. But there was one thing I hadn't accounted for. Jenna wasn't just going to scramble. She was going to fight. By noon, she'd already posted a long Instagram story about dealing with last-minute wedding sabotage and how some people can't handle commitment. She didn't name me, but she didn't have to. Half our guest list followed her account. And just like that, she'd started spinning her narrative before I could drop the truth. I stared at her posts, feeling the first twinge of doubt in my airtight plan. If she built up enough sympathy now, the reveal might not land the way I wanted, which meant I had to move faster. Much faster. And that's when I decided the reveal wasn't going to wait for the wedding day. It was going to happen at the rehearsal dinner, in front of her entire inner circle. 2 days before the rehearsal dinner, I was in my car outside a coffee shop, waiting for Jenna's cousin to arrive. She'd promised to pass me the last piece of the puzzle, a flash drive with extra screenshots and a short clip from inside Jenna's bridal suite talk. This was supposed to be the knockout blow, her bragging about training me, plus a few choice comments about certain guests that would ensure half the room turned on her instantly. But when the cousin slid into the passenger seat, she didn't have the drive in her hand. She had a look on her face I didn't like. Alex, we have a problem. She explained that Jenna had somehow gotten suspicious about leaks inside her circle. She'd called a private girls' night at her apartment and, between cocktails, casually asked everyone if they'd been talking to me. The cousin had played dumb, but then Jenna started showing messages, our messages. She'd somehow gotten into her cousin's iCloud backup, where screenshots of our DMs had been auto-synced. She didn't say anything outright, the cousin told me, but the way she smiled. Alex, she knows. I felt my stomach drop. If Jenna knew there was an inside informant, she'd be on guard at the rehearsal dinner, which meant any casual reveal would look like a premeditated attack, and she'd have time to prepare a counterstrike. Where's the drive now? I asked. That's the other thing, the cousin said, avoiding my eyes. I left it at home. I didn't want to risk bringing it in case she decided to search my bag. I sat there gripping the steering wheel, feeling my timeline slip through my fingers. The rehearsal dinner was less than 36 hours away. Without that drive, all I had were the original videos, strong, but not enough to obliterate her narrative completely. The cousin hesitated before speaking again. There's one more clip. I didn't tell you before because, well, it's from her work event last month. She was drunk, and she stopped. And she what? I pressed. She said the only reason she got engaged so fast was because she didn't think you'd last the year without her. That you're too dependent to function. It wasn't as theatrical as the roast or the bridal shower, but it was raw, cruel in a way that didn't need props or a stage. And it was said in front of colleagues, which made it even dirtier. Do you have it? She nodded. On my phone. But if I send it now, she'll know it came from me. That's when I realized this wasn't just about destroying her. It was about protecting my allies. If Jenna burned her cousin, I'd lose my last set of eyes on the inside. I had to improvise. Don't send me anything, I told her. Not yet. Just keep your phone on you at the dinner. If I give you the signal, you airdrop it to the best man. He'll know what to do. We agreed on a signal, me tapping my water glass twice, and she left looking both relieved and terrified. Driving home, I felt the weight of the risk. If she suspected even a hint of what was coming, she could flip the whole night on me. And with her charm and quick tongue, half the room might buy it, which meant there was no room for error. But I didn't know that. By the time the dinner started, she'd already set her own trap for me, and I was walking right into it. The rehearsal dinner was set in the back room of a small, upscale restaurant. White tablecloths, low lighting, and just enough background jazz to make people feel comfortable. On the surface, it looked like the perfect stage for polite toasts and harmless laughter. But the moment I walked in, I knew something was off. Jenna was already there, glowing in that calculated way she had when she wanted to own a room. Her smile was just a little too sharp, her laughter just a little too loud. And the way she greeted me, with a quick kiss on the cheek instead of the usual hug, was pure theater. I took my seat, scanning the table. Her friends clustered on one side, my few allies scattered on the other. The air was warm, almost humid, like the room itself was holding its breath. 15 minutes in, just as the salads were being cleared, Jenna stood up and clinked her glass. "Before we get into tomorrow's run-through," she said sweetly, "I thought we'd have a little fun tonight." That's when a projector flickered on at the far end of the room. My heart sank. A slideshow began. Pictures of me, pulled from social media, old group chats, even my own phone from God knows when. Every shot had been captioned with some funny remark. Me holding a half-burnt steak? Chef of the year. Me asleep in a hammock? Hard at work. The crowd laughed, some genuinely, some awkwardly. I caught the best man's eyes across the table. He looked like he wanted to punch someone. Then she dropped the hammer. "I just want everyone to know," Jenna said, "that no matter what happens, Alex is always himself." She let the words hang, letting the implication settle. It wasn't the roast from the Bachelorette party. It was something worse. It was a preemptive strike, a way of painting me as the kind of guy who could be laughed at right before I had the chance to turn the tables. And it worked. I felt the shift in the room. The way people's eyes flicked toward me, half smiling, waiting to see if I'd laugh along or get defensive. My plan depended on controlling the narrative, and she'd just stolen the opening act. For a second, I froze. The cousin glanced at me, fingers hovering over her phone, waiting for the signal. But if I dropped the clip now, it would look like a petty retaliation to a harmless joke. My chest tightened. This was the exact position she'd spent months engineering. Me on the back foot, her in control, the room leaning her way. If I pushed too soon, I'd confirm everything she'd been telling them behind my back. Jenna took her seat, satisfied, sipping her wine like the night was already hers. The conversation moved on, but my mind was racing. The window for my reveal was closing fast. I needed a turn, something to shift the energy, to give my evidence the impact it deserved. And then it happened. One of her friends, maybe a little drunk, leaned across the table and said, "Hey, Alex, remember what Jenna said at the shower about keeping you in line? That was hilarious." I forced a smile, but inside, the gears clicked into place. That was my opening. That was my bridge from harmless teasing to the raw truth. I reached for my glass, tapped it twice. The cousin's eyes lit up. And in that moment, I stopped being the one on trial and became the one about to pass the sentence. The room was still buzzing from Jenna's little slideshow when I tapped my glass a second time. The sound cut clean through the chatter, sharp and deliberate. Conversations trailed off. Heads turned. I wasn't planning to make a speech tonight. I began, keeping my tone calm, almost conversational. But since Jenna decided to share some memories, I think it's only fair I return the favor. I glanced at the best man, who slid his phone out without hesitation. Across from me, the cousin unlocked hers, thumb hovering over the airdrop button. Within seconds, his phone buzzed with the file, the one from the bridal shower, plus the group chat screenshots. "Derek," I said, "mind hooking that up to the projector?" Jenna laughed lightly, that rehearsed, "I'm not worried," kind of laugh. "Oh, this should be good." The first clip rolled. Jenna at the bridal shower, glass in hand, delivering her "keep him a little insecure" speech. At first, there was polite chuckling around the table, the kind people give when they're not sure if they're supposed to laugh. But then she got to the line about public embarrassment being the fastest teacher. The chuckles stopped. Someone muttered, "Wow." Then came the group chat screenshots, blown up on the wall for everyone to see. Jenna's words, "Teach him who's running the show," hanging there in bright, undeniable text. Jenna shifted in her seat, still smiling, but now it was tight, brittle. Come on, Alex, that's just. I held up a hand. There's more. The next clip played. The work event, her slurring into her wine glass about only getting engaged because she didn't think I'd last the year without her. That one didn't get laughs. It got silence. I could feel the heat in the room change, the way her friends avoided her eyes, the way my allies straightened in their chairs. Even the restaurant staff slowed down, sensing something electric in the air. Jenna's voice cut through, sharper now. You're taking things out of context. It was all out of context. I repeated. Then let's ask your mother if she thinks this is out of context. She's seen these clips. She sent me one of them. Gasps. Her mother didn't flinch. Jenna's eyes darted to her, but the older woman just said, "You've been playing with fire, Jenna, and now you're shocked you got burned." For the first time all evening, Jenna's composure cracked. Her shoulders tensed, her voice pitched higher. "This is ridiculous. You're just trying to humiliate me." I leaned forward, meeting her gaze. "No, Jenna. I'm just returning the favor. You made our relationship a performance. I'm making sure the audience sees the whole script." I stood, sliding a small envelope across the table. Inside is a copy of the cancellation notice for the venue, the caterer, and the DJ. The wedding's off. Everyone here can consider their weekend free. Someone actually clapped. Jenna stared at the envelope like it might bite her. "You can't." I already did. "And before you start spinning this online, remember, every person in this room now has the unedited files. Try to twist it, and they'll have the truth in their pocket." The silence that followed was dense, heavy. I didn't wait for her reply. I thanked the guests for coming, picked up my jacket, and walked out into the cool night air. Behind me, voices began to rise, not for me, but at her. I didn't need to hear the words to know the tide had turned. And for the first time in months, I felt taller than the room I'd just left. The morning after the rehearsal dinner, my phone was an avalanche of notifications, texts, missed calls, even a few voicemails from numbers I didn't recognize. I ignored them. Instead, I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of coffee, letting the silence stretch. It was the first time in months my heart wasn't pounding like it was waiting for the next jab. By noon, the messages started changing tone. Friends who'd been distant were now sending things like, "Man, I had no idea," and "Good for you for standing up for yourself." Even a couple of Jenna's own bridesmaids reached out privately, one admitting she'd been uncomfortable with the roast, but hadn't known how to say anything without getting iced out. Then came the email from the wedding planner. "I've processed all the cancellations as requested. Deposits returned where possible. I wish you the best moving forward." It was clean. Final. Jenna didn't call me, not directly. She went to social media first. Her Instagram story was a predictable mix of vague quotes about betrayal and finding out who people really are. But this time, something was different. The comments weren't lining up behind her. A few were supportive, sure, but most were cautious, asking questions. And more than a few referenced hearing both sides. By evening, the videos had started circulating, not because I'd sent them, but because someone from the dinner had. I'd promised myself I wouldn't leak them further, but once they were out, there was no stopping it. The clips didn't go viral in a public sense. They weren't trending on TikTok, but they went locally viral, bouncing through our mutual social circles like wildfire. The next day, Jenna's cousin texted me. She's in damage control mode. Tried to say the videos were edited. No one's buying it. Her mother called that afternoon. "You did what had to be done," she said simply. There was no gloating, no satisfaction in her voice, just a kind of resigned relief. Maybe now she'll think before turning people into her entertainment. In the weeks that followed, I noticed something strange. I wasn't replaying the humiliation in my head anymore. Instead, I kept replaying the moment I tapped that glass at the dinner, the way the air shifted, the way the room went quiet. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about reclaiming the ground I'd lost without even realizing it. The cancellations gave me more than my money back. They gave me my time, my weekends, my mental bandwidth. I started going out with friends again, meeting people without the filter of Jenna's fiancé attached to my name. One night, Derek and I grabbed a drink, and he raised his glass. "To dodging a bullet," he said. I smirked. "To dodging a grenade." We both laughed, the real kind, not the tight, performative laugh I'd learned to use in Jenna's world. A month later, I heard through the grapevine that Jenna had taken a job in another city. I didn't dig for details. Let her start over. That was her business now. Mine was making sure I never let someone slowly chip away at me like that again. People talk about closure like it's a door you shut. For me, it wasn't that. It was more like stepping outside after a long, loud party and realizing you'd forgotten what quiet felt like. I didn't need to see Jenna's face again to know the chapter was closed. I just needed to hear the sound of my own life, without the laugh track.